when it comes to how you can ask for something. What choices will decide your dynamics 5 years from now? If you're adulting, if you run a business, if you lead a household, if you're married or it's time of long-term partnerships, if you're a co-author, if you work with certain organizations, if you have a job, chances are you're going to see them again. Whoever you're negotiating with, you're going to see them again. If you're married or in a long-term partnership, you can go and have a drop down, dirty fight. I don't mean fist fight, but I mean just argument, going for the jugular, going at each other, all that stuff. And then it's nighttime and you're getting in the same bed. You're living in the same house. You wake up in the morning, and if you got kids like I do, the kids got to get fed. The bills got to get paid. You're still seeing this person's family, vice versa. Do you really want to do the Oppenheimer option? Do you really want to hit the red button? Whatever you're asking for, whatever you're fighting for, maybe even literally as far as verbal fighting, what impact will that have on that dynamic? I like to go 5 years out. Some people are a lot shorter. Some people say 90 days. No 90-day fiance. But some people go 90 days and say, okay, if I win this, quote unquote, how's it gonna look? What happens when this organization or this individual um, needs something from me, and we have a symbiotic relationship where it goes back and forth. If you have a roommate and you have a beef with them, and I've had plenty of roommates, particularly in my college years and grad school years, and again, you end up hitting the nuclear button, and you get exactly what you want. Every single thing on your list, you got a lease with that fool for another 3 months, 6 months, year. Depends on what state you're in. You know, you sign a contract with this person. This is a partnership. Most importantly, if you are a supervisor and you have subordinates, or if you are an individual, an employee, and you have a supervisor or a boss, whatever term you want to use, you're going to have to work with them the next day. And whether it's passive aggressive ways or just aggressive ways, there's ways where if you're not considerate as far as what you ask for, how you show up, then they can make your life way harder than it needs to be. So it becomes more about a give and take. Simon Sinek has a great term for that. It's called the long game. It's actually not his term, but he made it popular about a decade and a half ago. And the long game, as well as Dory Clark, shout out to Dory. So it's Dory Clark as well as Simon Sinek. Simon Sinek talked about the infinite game, and then Dory Clark talked about the long game. Shout out to both of them. The basic idea is this: there are infinite games and there's finite games. Finite games are games like football. Shout out to New Orleans, happening this weekend. There's going to be a winner at the Super Bowl. It's going to be 4 quarters. It's going to be, I'm sure, some touchdowns. There'll be Kendrick Lamar. Shout out to him. And then it's going to be over. And everybody's going to go home. Hopefully, have a safe time in Bourbon Street. Shout out to my people down there. Hope you guys are doing better. And everybody's going to have a great time. And then guess what? A year later, it's going to happen again. But for right now, they are the Super Bowl champions of the world. That's a finite game. Really simple, really clear. These are the rules. This is how it's set up. Da, da, da. Got it. And then there's infinite games. Again, not Simon Sinek's concept, but he had a beautiful book called The Infinite Game that talked about it deeper. Infinite games are being married, as long as you're married. Infinite games are being a parent or being a child. Infinite games are having a co-founder. I've done all these things. Many of y'all that are watching probably have too. These Infinite games, there is no ending. I mean, you could get divorced, you know, someone that you're involved with could pass away. You could pass away. So technically, but in the grand scheme of things, they're infinite games. There is no winner and there is no loser. And I think one of the challenges we have when we negotiate, ask for something we want, is that we feel like there has to be a winner or a loser. I'm going to get everything on my list, or I lost. The secret though, whether it's Dory or Simon talking, the secret is that there's always going to be another list. There's always going to be another desire, another thing that you must have. That list of three or less non-negotiables, they're evolving as much as you're evolving, as much as the cells in our body, die off and replicate every 7 years. It's a shift of thesis. If you're up on your Greek mythology, it just keeps reproducing, changing ever more. So if you're putting all your chips, remember I'm a Vegas guy, so if you're putting all your chips into this one fight, this one negotiation, this one ad, pushing everything in there, and the other parties involved are like, fine, you can have it. God, why are you going so hard? And you're like, yeah, I got it. This ain't the Super Bowl. Kendrick's not gonna come out at halftime. You're not in New Orleans. This isn't finite. You're gonna have to wake up next day or go to work the next day, or you're gonna need something else. And you're gonna talk to this party, this organization, these individuals, this partner, and they're gonna be like, yo, you just hit the detonator. And that might be the end of the partnership, might be the end of your job, it might be a subordinate or an employee that doesn't want to rock with you anymore. It can get really ugly because you were solely focused on getting this battle when, if you want to use the bad analogy, when it really was a war. Infinite games are the war. Infinite games are the long game. Again, shout out to both Dory Clark as well as Simon Sinek. I love y'all. And fantastic works. Okay, you got it. You got it. I'm originally from South Jersey, so I'm not going to argue with you. I'm not going to argue with you. We'll see how that holds up this weekend. But I'm a fan of Kendrick. I'm only rooting for Kendrick, to be honest. See, there's that little bit of, see, that's why I'm a journalist, but not really a journalist because I'm definitely going to show my bias. But when it comes to the games, there's the infinite games and there's the finite games. Knowing where you stand on that, I think makes a big difference. So if you want to go deeper into it, a book I highly recommend, actually, I have a physical book here. It's called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Luis. I think I got his name right. I don't. I used to know Spanish a little bit. Now I know no Spanish. Go figure. Fantastic book. It talks about the four agreements. The four agreements are. It has at the beginning. Be impeccable with your word. Don't take anything personally. Don't make assumptions. Always do your best. That third one is a banger to me. Don't make assumptions. So you can't really assume where other people are coming from, organizations or otherwise. You can't know what their motivations are because unless you're Professor X or you're some type of mutant from the X-Men, you can't read minds. So you're going to have to communicate in a certain way. I talked about that at the top of the episode, the excellent book, Crucial Conversations. All the links are below with all the stuff I'm talking about. Or if you don't see the links on there, you can go over to bringyourworth.tv and the links are on the main channel. This book is fantastic because then it kind of takes kind of the scorpion venom out of the argument or out of discussion, out of the ask, because you don't know where they're coming from. And you show up as your best, as we talked about earlier in our episode, chances are they're going to show up as their best as well. Again, this actually almost made the tiny book list that I did a week or two ago. It's a fantastic little book. You can read it in the afternoon. It is so, so good. And it's a good primer for that kind of thing. Yes, I'm so glad you read the book. Yes, there's a fifth agreement book that I just heard about, and I have not read it yet. This I just read this book about a year ago, to be honest. I was late to this book, but thank you, Octavia. Maybe I'll go ahead and check out the fifth agreement and report back and share some of that with y'all. But yeah, thank you for that. The fourth agreement, Four Agreements is so good. I read it. I think I got it 2 years ago. I think I've been reading it pretty much every year since then. So I think I read it at least twice, maybe three times, and it's such a good book because you have to remember that other people are human as well. One of the most popular episodes, in fact, it might be the most popular episode on Bring Your Worth TV, Brene Brown's Secret to Accepting Difficult People. It's super short. Um, Episode 27. This is super early on. And it really started that discussion as far as how we show up for other people, how we can honor other people while also honoring our own boundaries. We just finished the holidays here in the States, and there's family stuff, there's family drama, all these things. How can we be loving and, as they say in Buddhism, come with loving kindness while also respecting our boundaries? In other words, there's also loving kindness towards ourselves. That's really what this episode is about. Not just the Brene Brown episode, but this episode in general. I talk about that in the newsletter. In fact, I forgot to show that in the beginning. Let me go and show that in there, but it's in the links below if you guys happen to miss it. Where is the newsletter? Oh, there it is. Newsletter is Why Any Old Thing Will Do, Stays newsletter. It's at joindamon.me. Let's go to joindamon.me. You go subscribe for free. It comes out every Wednesday. And talking about how we often settle for a false sense of peace, but we're angry behind the scenes. Where in reality, it should be the reverse. If we're going to have healthiness, then it should be discussing with the people that we love, with the people that we want to work with or currently work with, what our needs are. And then true partnership, good relationships, have the other people or the other people involved or organizations involved helping provide what we need. But us sitting back angry as far as how people are acting and saying things aren't fair, I mean, that's part of adulting. We have to show up and say whatever is on our mind. Again, unless you're unless you got telekinesis or not telekinesis, but you're a mind reader, then you're not going to be able to know why people do what they do, why organizations show up, why they show up. I remember it was one organization where they were having trouble paying my invoices, and come to find out there was stuff going on behind the scenes, and it wasn't a matter of me saying you better pay this freaking invoice, even though I felt that way. I got mouths to feed, but it was more like me being curious and inquisitive and saying, okay, what's going on? And they were like, oh yeah, this is what's happening. Really sorry, da, da, da. And we end up working things out. But that discussion needs to happen again by not making assumptions about other people or other organizations as far as how they're showing up and why they're showing up that way. This episode, which I think is one of the reasons why you guys have liked the episode so much, is it talks about that. It's only a 7-minute episode. I think you guys would appreciate it. And How to Win the Long Game, The Infinite Game, starring Simon Sinek, and talking about his work and going deeper into what I talked about today. It's about a 10-minute episode. I read his book, Infinite Game. I think it came out 6, 7 years ago. I think it came out when the pandemic hit. So I want to say 5 years ago. Fantastic book, definitely worth reading. I have the audiobook, and actually the links are in there as far as if you want to pick up The Infinite Game. When it comes to the things that you guys are negotiating and trying to figure out, what moves are you making or what moves can you make to keep that partnership or that relationship healthy in the next 90 days to 5 years? Are you making moves while you're asking and negotiating for things that are actually contributing to the health of that dynamic versus contributing to having ill will down the road? The wonderful song by Alan Toussaint. I know the version by Little Feat, which if you know your New Orleans bands, they're classic. Love, love, love the song. It's called On Your Way Down. And it's like the folks that you mistreat on your way up, you might you might you might hit them on your way down. In other words, the dynamics and the power shifts, which is why I talked about the 48 allows for power earlier this episode. They can shift in any moment. As I said in my books, including in the it's mentioned in the complete Bring Your Worth collection. Again, the links are all below. I talked about how There were people that got me into that respective business who I looked up to, who were at the top of the heap. And then within a few years, they're calling me asking if they knew about if I knew about any job opportunities, freelance or otherwise. Those dynamics had changed within a few years. It's not a flex on my part or a flex on theirs. That's just the way the world works. And what goes up must comes down. Spinning wheel goes round and round. Pick a song. You see Coltrane over there. I'm a song guy, but pick a song. There's a reason why these songs exist. Pick a decade. There's a song about what you do on the way up, but you might need those people on the way down. You might need them to help you. This is part of that dynamic as far as looking at the long game and looking at the infinite game. I've had moments where I took those relationships and those dynamics for granted, and suddenly a situation changed. And sometimes you have to humble yourself. Let me know in the comments. Were there moments where you had to kind of take a break and be like, oh, yeah, let me not fight as hard because still need to work with these people or this organization the next day. Maybe I'll share some other stories from the front line in a future episode. I'm entrepreneurial coach Damon Brown. If you want to go and work with me, feel free to come over to damebrown.net. There's messaging on there. You can shoot me a DM, whatever. I'd love to go and support you as a coach. And maybe we can do a free consultation and see if we'd be good working together. You're watching Bring Your Worth TV, episode 408, talking about how to ask for things. Leave a comment below. Even if you're watching the replay, I'd love to hear about how you guys are dealing with that. And if any of this is useful, you can subscribe on any of the platforms for free, including at the main page. That's the word I'm looking for. Main page over at bringyourworth.tv. Until next Wednesday, I appreciate y'all. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Thank you for coming through. And as far as consulting and coaching, you go to damebrown.net, and then there should be a link at the very top that says work with Damon if you guys are interested in it. Thanks for your comments from all of y'all. And this is such a great show. I appreciate today's episode because y'all are really coming through. But I appreciate y'all and much love. Peace. Oh, and I'll go ahead and get the link right there. We'll do the extended thing. Thank you for the question, Octavia. Give me 1 second. That is a legit question. And I think I have it in the links below as well. There we go. You know what, Octavia, you're on top of things, and I think I'll start including that in the links because yeah, I have a lot of stuff on. As you can tell, I'm a pretty diverse person. The link is right there. Thank you, Octavia. I appreciate you. Coach with me. You go to damebrown.net. Just click that. It'll also be in the links below and the replay that you guys are watching. Thanks again, Octavia, as well as the other comments that came through. I appreciate y'all. And for real, I'm going to wrap up the show. Remember, you can always bring your worth. You can always build from now. Take care of yourselves and others. Peace.